17 Will County Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. All rise. Commissioner Tom White will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
I'm sorry.
All are here, man.
Mike Carruthers, Joliet Township.
Here.
Scott Lager, Homer Township.
Here.
Kim Mitchell, Shanahan Township. Here. Barbara Peterson, Washington Township is here. Hugh Stippen, Frankfurt Township.
Here.
Thomas White, Troy Township.
Here.
Chairman Len Balone, Manhattan Township.
Here. In your package, you had the meeting minutes for the October 17, 2017 meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Kim, we have a Kim and Mike. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I abstain on that. I wasn't there. Okay, Madam Secretary, do you have any announcements?
Mr. Chairman, variance cases heard this evening will be heard to a conclusion by this commission. We do have some special use permits that we will also be hearing, but the special use permits will advance to the Land Use Development Committee, this county boardroom, next Tuesday, February 14th at 10:30.
November.
Pardon me?
November 14th. What does it say?
November 14th, next Tuesday, November 14th. Other than that, we will hear to a conclusion all variance cases.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to swear everyone in that plans on giving testimony. So at this time, I'd ask you to raise your right hand and say, "I do," after I swear you in. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. I do. Thank you. This time we ask if you would turn off your cell phones for the meeting. The first case on the agenda tonight. Zoning case ZC-17-027. We have a request to continue this case to December 5th, 2017. Do we have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Next case on the agenda. Zoning case ZC-17-031. The applicant is Tyler Gervais. We have a request for a special use permit, and we have a request for 2 variances. And Janine from our staff will open up this case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Zoning case ZC-17-031 takes place in Washington Township. The applicant is Tyler Gervais, and he is requesting a special use permit to operate a landscaping business. He is also requesting 2 variances, one for minimum side yard setback from 50 feet to 2.87 feet, and one for the minimum rear yard setback from 50 feet to 11.69 feet. The applicant is currently operating a landscape business and is in violation with the county. He is requesting the special use and these variances to come into compliance. The variances are addressing structures that were built without permits along the property lines. I have an aerial here up for you. Outlined in red is the parcel. It is 10 acres. This is the Plata survey, and you can see those structures that I mentioned. They're along the northern and the rear or the western property lines. This is a Plata survey outlining just the special use area. Property is zoned A1, and it is also surrounded by A1 zoning. As you will note, it is on State Line Road. So across the street is Indiana, and it is also agricultural zoning within the state of Indiana. Whoa. Back up a little bit. Okay. There we go. So this is a view looking west up the driveway towards the residence that's on the property. and then also looking the opposite direction, so across State Line Road. This is a view of the pole building that's on the property where the business is being operated from, and also the sort of parking lot area for the employees on the site. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, there we go. These are views of the variances, so you can see that those metal shed structures right there, the backs of those structures, and then the survey stake is there along the tree line. So that is the variance on the northern side. And then there is also the variance, that's a view looking across the property line to the property to the north. And then we have the variance to the rear with those structures along the western property line, and then that's a view looking across to the west of the property. Okay, staff is recommending approval of the special use permit for a landscaping business with 4 conditions. The first condition is our standard that we put on the special use permits. The second condition is that building permits for the structures which are utilized for the landscaping business will be applied for within 6 months of county board approval. That will ensure that the structures are brought up to commercial code, that adequate sanitary facilities are being provided for the employees at the site. At that time, staff will also review the site as a whole and any parking concerns that would need to be addressed with that landscaping business. The third and the fourth conditions, the fourth one I will address, the applicant has indicated that the special use would not be transferable to subsequent property owners, so we'd like to make note that this would end with this specific property owner. Staff does not believe that the operation of the landscape business will be detrimental to the public's health, safety, or welfare. It has been in operation for several years here, and by putting these conditions on the special use permit, we will ensure the safety of the employees at the site as well. Staff is recommending denial of the 2 variances, however. There is no unique circumstance or hardship as to why the applicant could not meet the 50-foot setback from those property lines on this 10-acre parcel. There is no floodplain on the property or any sort of other concerns that pose a hardship to the applicant. And that concludes staff's analysis.
The variances are for the building, the one building, and how old was that building, you think?
They were put up, according to aerial photography, they were put up probably about maybe 2016, 2015.
Any other questions of staff? Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here tonight? Would you like to come down? Yes. Please state your name for the records.
Hi, Richard Bay.
Okay, I brought you down for a couple of reasons. Number one, staff is recommending denial on 2 of your requests, so if you want to speak on those, you can. And the other thing is that I do believe there's others that may want to speak on this tonight, so we'll give you an opportunity to respond once they speak. So if you have anything to say.
In regards to the buildings, what I did is I went to 3 of the adjoining property neighbors. My neighbor directly to the north, his property doesn't go back as far as mine. And the greenhouses, which seem to be the biggest issue, are really, they order a different neighbor. He's not here tonight. But I got his approval, the neighbor to the west, and the neighbor to the south. And they signed some papers that said that they have no objection to the greenhouses staying. Those
Are we talking
both-
about a greenhouse or a pole barn?
Well, there's 3 small, one of them is, well, there's 3 small buildings, structures, to the north side of the main pole barn. I see that they're going.
Were they there, or did you put them there?
I put them there.
Okay.
So I bought the property about Well, I was 21 when I built it, and it was just farm ground, and then they're just temporary structures. One of them is a carport that we use to put fertilizer under. One of them is another carport that we put salt under, and then the other is just a building that sits on they're 8x8 posts that the building frame sits on that are just held down by ground anchors. There's no concrete or foundation, water, electric, anything ran to those buildings, and those are just cold storage. So we just hold the irrigation supplies and fertilizer, like I said.
The street buildings, smaller buildings, are they permanent buildings on foundations, or are they movable buildings?
With some work, they are movable. Like I said, there's no concrete foundations or anything
Are
like
they
that.
in with poles, or how are they, oh, those can be moved?
Yes.
The pole barn, yeah, obviously is permanent.
Yeah, well, the pole barn, there's no issues with the pole building. They don't have an issue with that. It's the 3 small buildings to the north of that. And then there's 10 greenhouses along the north property line between on my property that borders Michael.
Can you point out where those greenhouses are they at the corner of the property there?
They are top left, so there's 5 shaded, and then there's 1 box.
Okay. And then the pole, so the pole building actually is at the center of the property? Okay.
The shaded portion is my.
In the center of the property, that's where the pole barn is at?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's not for pole barns, it's for the temporary structures?
For the 3 small structures right above the big pole building, and then up in the top left.
Okay, so therefore, your staff aren't going to deny it, so if it gets denied, you're going to have to remove those, you understand that, don't you?
I do understand that.
Okay.
What's most important to me are the greenhouses where we grow flowers for whoever. They're annual flowers, they are heated, they've got the underground water. No concrete foundations, they're basically a 2-inch steel bow that sits on top of 24-inch pieces of rebar. But those are most important. I would be willing, if somebody allows me to, I would be willing to move the 3 that seem to be the biggest issue to the north of the building if I'm able to keep the greenhouses. And like I said, my neighbors where those greenhouses border, he did say he has no objection to granting an approved variance.
Let them speak.
Yes, ma'am, I gave it to her. It was
Yeah.
the neighbors to the west, the neighbors to the adjoining property to the south and the north.
Yeah, the neighbors to the west just moved in, from what I understand.
Yeah, they've been there a few weeks.
And they were concerned about flooding from your pond on the back of their property.
Really? Their property is about 4 feet higher than the water level will ever be.
Well, I couldn't tell that. I was there today, and I really couldn't tell there because I didn't have boots on. I couldn't walk back there.
Gotcha.
Um,
Well, they have it in writing that, or you have it in writing that they have no objection.
Yes, I do. I laud you on obtaining that, I'd say, but I don't know where this came from. He's got a lot of stuff there, that's all I can say. And the neighbor to the west, you're right there on his line, more or less, which shows it because of the variance that you're asking for. You've got a lot of trees, and the whole place is on overload.
Well, it is at a nursery, that's where we grow our
And
plants.
there were about 16 or 17 cars there today when I was there. I was there at lunchtime.
I understand. Yeah, that's an employee parking lot.
Okay.
It's all
yeah.
organized, it's very well
Well,
taken
I
care of.
I understand on that, and if I sound argumentative, it's just me. It's
I
just how I
understand.
sound.
I'm just letting you know,
But-
just more informative than anything.
All
But
right.
the thing is, landscaping, is it 12 months with you?
Well, we push snow in the wintertime, if it ever gets
Okay,
cold.
but from what I was told by some of the employees that work for Washington Township, is that there's 35 to 50 cars there during the summer months. So you must have a big, thriving business. And I think that according to Janine, the special use permit, I expected that there would be more conditions than there really are. But, where did this come from? Is there somebody here?
That is the plaintiff's.
Okay.
Okay, do you have anything else?
No, not right
Brian,
now.
I'll tell you what,
I
why
can
don't you take
answer.
a seat up here, if you have anything else to add, we'll take a seat up here.
Okay.
But are there any objectors or concerned citizens that would like to speak on this case? Please step down. We'll ask that one to be at the podium at a time, okay? Please state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Dan Boland. I'm an attorney for the neighbors to the north, Kenneth Fran Brewers. We're here tonight to object to the applicant's request for relief because the requested relief does not meet the standards. The objectors are going to put on evidence that demonstrates that. First things first, we just want to point out that we agree with staff. The applicant's requested variances do not meet the standards. The hardship is self-imposed. The owner built the structures without a permit, and the blighted owner is not due to unique circumstances. And there are not unique characteristics of the property that they require the installation of those structures along the property line. Again, having these structures, as staff points out, so close to the property line would alter the essential character of the area. And what's more, your standards require that the variance not be made or requested out of a desire to make more money out of the property. Obviously, those requested variances are to accommodate a commercial use, so the proposed variances wouldn't satisfy that standard, and the proposed variances do injure neighboring property, another one of their standards, with stormwater runoff, salt runoff, blight, and the encroachment into the setback itself. Well, one note about the variances is that under your code, those do run with the property. I know that the requested special use would not run with the property, but when considering the variance, it's important to consider that variances under your code, unless provided otherwise, do run with the property. So this would be a real hardship on the neighbors beyond the life of the existing use. As for the special use standards, we're afraid that the conditions of the property are worse than detailed in the staff report. And the proposed special use also does not meet the requested standards. Unlike most special use applications that you consider, you don't have to guess what the proposed use is going to be like. This is an already operating use, and it's already detrimental to public health, safety, and welfare. We're going to hear about dying trees from salt leaching into neighboring soil. We're going to hear about how the property is injurious to the neighboring residential uses from the burning of garbage and landscape waste. We're going to hear about how the proposed special use impedes the normal and orderly development of the surrounding property. Obviously, the buildings located are not orderly, and this is not the type of agricultural use that was contemplated by your land use management plan. The applicant's storage uses are more industrial in nature under the county's use classifications. Significantly, the applicants failed to provide adequate drainage for the property. The other neighbors, I've not seen the letters submitted by the other neighbors, but we are going to hear more about how the stormwater runoff has affected neighboring owners. The loading of unloading of trucks. There are quite a number of them that are disturbing to the neighboring residential properties. And of course, without the variance, the proposed special use does not comply with the underlying district regulations. And that's a requirement for you to, one of the standards by which you evaluate a proposed special use. So it's the objector's position that the proposed special use doesn't meet the standards, but should you wish to still recommend approval of it, we think that that approval should be subject to conditions. And we've given proposed conditions to the applicant and to the members of the board. We can talk a little bit about those more after we hear from some of the neighbors, if that's all right with you. I'd like to call Ken Brewer.
Sure. Would you, let me ask you this question. These conditions that you're talking about, were they submitted to staff before we came to the meeting?
No.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to know that. Okay.
Sure.
So, in essence, you're basically objecting to all three, the special use and both variances?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Janine? See, you push the button.
Nothing yet.
I don't see it. I don't know. Just speak loud.
Okay.
It doesn't come up on here, that's why I can't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is the first time that staff has seen these conditions and even received any knowledge that there were objectors to this case. And I would like to note, after doing just a cursory glance at the proposed conditions from these objectors, some of these items would be addressed under the building permit process regardless. Certain items like would be required to comply with all applicable codes and regulations. That of course is a standard requirement with any case.
Do you have the list right now?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so why don't you take a look at that, and then we'll come back to you, and any of those that you think are already addressed, of those that aren't addressed, we'll take a look at. The other question I have is, typically when we have a landscape application for a special use, there's usually something mentioned about waste services. Does that fall under the health department, or is that, typically there's something about waste, storing of waste on the property as a condition? I don't see any of that. I just wonder.
So I spoke with our Resource Recovery and Energy Division, and since the applicant was not in violation with them, he did not have any conditions to add to the special use permit for this zoning case.
Okay, but the Waste Services Division will monitor the property for that?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what I need to know. Okay, please state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name is Ken Brewers. I'm the property owner just to the north of Mr. Tyler. What I'd like to say is my wife and I moved there 25 years ago. Had a small few horses there, ponies, agriculture. We moved there just for the peacefulness of it. At this point, like I said, there have been some problems with the landscaping business there as far as what was happening. Actually, like I said, some of it was the water runoff. When he started developing the back portions there, my pasture flooded, where I couldn't even get my hay, And at that point, like I said, it was asked about him, asked Mr. Tyler about it, and said it was normal drainage from it. After being there 25 years, I had never seen it that bad, where he had 6 inches of standing water on the property. It does flow, there is some natural drainage, I agree with that. But like I said, to increase from very minimal, that would last maybe a couple hours, 8 hours or so, to the point where I got standing water there. And like I said, I submitted some pictures showing where you look at the portfolio that's given you, As far as I know, you know, he broke a tile, a large drainage tile there, and it was quite a while before he even decided to fix it. You know, and it continued to flood, flooding from my property to the neighbor to the north of me. You know. So the industrial buildings that he has there, the salt barn, killed all the trees on my property going along there, just from the salt, road salt leaching into the soil, and also killed some of my hay grass. You know, what happens is, like I said, the temporary building that he had there had a canvas back on this back side of it, and when the wind would blow, the road salt would just come on to the north. Normal prevailing winds out by us is from the south going to the north, you know. And I had asked him about, you know, sealing it up or something, but I don't know if it's leaching down through the soil, the gravel that he put down there, going back down there. But if you'll see, there's a whole set of trees there that are dead. You know, yeah. Like I said, I have no problem personally with him running a landscaping business, but somebody to hold him to task, that's what I'm asking for. You know what I mean? Move back off my property line, give me a little room, because evidently he wasn't sure where the property line was. In the process there of digging out that thing there, he took down a considerable amount of my fencing, my horse fencing, the smooth wire.
Why?
Evidently his bulldozer or something drove right over it,
Oh,
you know, and I had mentioned to him, you know, we put one post in. And like I said, I've got an area that probably is, I'd say 60 to 70 feet going this way, and it's a corner torn down there, you know. So like I said, that's basically what I have. Like I said, we lived there 25 years. Nice, peaceful, residential area. I built a nice house there, you know, because we wanted this residential area, you know, in the farmlands. So basically, that's about all I can say.
well, you know he's asking for the side yard setback from 50 feet to 2.87 feet. That's figuring 3 feet.
3 feet, yeah.
Now, I don't know, I mean, where your line is there, but I can't see any reason for that, to be perfectly honest with you, because he has 10 acres.
That's,
He's
like I
got
said,
10 acres,
like I
so,
said,
is the water fixed, or is there
it's
still a problem
still,
with
it
it?
still floods. It's not as bad, I'll have to say it. It's not as bad. He capped a pipe that he had coming up out of there, and it was spewing out of there like a fountain. You know, so he did put a cap on that, you know, reduced it, but we haven't had any real heavy rains since then.
Okay. Hold on a second. Do you have anything else to add? I mean, what you're saying is you want to see, do you object to the retreat requests, and is there anything else you'd like to add at this time?
Yeah, I object to the setback of 3 feet. I mean, you know, that's a little ridiculous as far as I'm concerned, you know. And like I said, these buildings were put up there, the 3 that he's talking about. They've got to be about 3-4 years they've been sitting there.
As far as the special use permit, do you have an objection to that, or yes or no, as far as it being running as that landscape business?
No, I don't want to put the man on.
Okay.
Yeah,
But you have objection to the variance?
just the variance
Two
and fix
variance
the,
requests, one's for 3 feet, one's for 10 feet. Now, the 10 feet, I think, is on the west property line.
Yes.
Do you have any objection to that?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
And like I said, it's just that if conditions where he take care of this salt barn from pouring that salt into my pasture, killing the grass.
Okay, is the salt in one of those blue buildings?
It's in a green building in the center, if you pull up that large center one, which is 46 feet in length and 26 feet wide. So,
Okay.
you know, a payloader goes in there, a huge Michigan payloader. It's
Okay.
not a small building.
Okay. And this was road stuff.
Yeah, it's for his plowing business.
Oh,
and
that's right,
yeah,
yeah.
Is that going right on the property line, 3 feet, within 3 feet of the property line?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right then. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I don't, then.
Okay,
Ross?
if you could, would you step up to the podium if you have something to add?
Sure, I just had two questions for Ken. Ken,
I think it has to be directed to the commission.
You don't ask any questions, not here.
At the commission level, it all has to be asked to us.
sure, my question for
Sure.
the property owner would be to make clear that he does have an objection to the special use permit, but would like to see it subject to conditions.
Okay. Thank you.
That's my question.
Okay. I think we brought that up earlier. Is there someone going to bring up those conditions?
I'll be happy to.
I'll tell you what, because we're at the commission level, you gave them to the staff, I think you should get up there and read the
I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
go ahead, why don't we go up there and look at those conditions right now?
Sure.
If you could, I'd just like to get some order to this, and I think if you're requesting some, and what we'll do is, you can sit down.
Okay.
And what we'll do is this, read them one at a time, Janine will address them to see whether, it's something that's already covered within our ordinances, how's that sound?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Lovely. And my apologies to staff. We don't get a whole lot of notice of this either. But we did come up with these conditions to help manage the kind of negative impacts from the proposed use. And the one thing that is really concerning is the stormwater that we've heard a bit about. And we'd like to have the civil engineer confirm to staff satisfaction that the applicant's structures do not increase the flow of stormwater onto adjacent property.
Can you address that?
Sure. But, so we do have our engineering division, which reviews every building permit and site development permits, who would be looking at the runoff and drainage on the property in regards to the permitting.
So that would normal procedure on a permitting process under the building department?
Yeah.
Okay, next.
But that would be for the my confusion is, the structures are existing.
Well, the structure is existing, but it's built without a permit, so therefore the town is going to have to come back in there and take a look at it.
Very good.
So within that process, that's going to be taken care of.
Very good. The other, second condition we'd be interested in has to involve with the loading and unloading of trucks. We'd like to see that operation limited, certain hours of operation, to ensure that it doesn't disturb the adjacent.
And do you have any type of hours that you would like to propose?
As we suggested, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
7 a.m. to 7 p.m.?
We'd like to see that kind of activity restricted.
Janine, you have anything to say on that?
That would not be covered under the ordinance, so that could be a condition that the commission would like to put on.
We can consider that.
You can consider that. And I would like to mention too, so the building permit would absolutely be covering that whole building to make sure that it is up to commercial code. So it wouldn't necessarily be just for the buildings built without a permit, it would be even for that existing whole building that the commercial business is operating out of. It's a change of use type permit to make
Okay,
sure.
thank you.
Thanks.
Can you speak up just a little bit though?
My apologies. The next condition, we'd like to see compliance with plans. It sounds like this, the condition 3A that we've circulated to everyone might already be something that's accounted for, that requiring compliance with any plans that are reviewed by staff. But something new might be 3B, based on the testimony about burning garbage on the property in Illinois. Burning commercial waste is prohibited anywhere. And so we'd like to see a waste disposal plan approved by staff and ask the applicant to comply with it.
Janine? can you speak to
And I
that?
think, I spoke with Dean over here, who's with our resource recovery and energy division, just to kind of
Anybody, any commercial waste.
Like garbage or?
Well, and I expect there will be more testimony about the garbage being brought to the site, organic and non-organic garbage is being brought to the site.
So, what you mean is the landscape waste, because that's the nature of the gentleman's business, am I right?
Yes.
All right, so he would have to make sure that he only brought enough back that would be on his truck, and not any more than that, and then get rid of that the following day. So that's the way the law reads. The law reads is you can bring it back, whatever's on your truck. You can bring it back over even a weekend. You could even do that. But beyond that would not be acceptable. And he couldn't be putting it on the property either. He couldn't dump it out and then store it on the property at all. Otherwise, it's a transfer station, and that requires IEPA permitting and the zoning.
Agreed, and in any event, he can't be burning.
No, and absolutely no burning. No burning is anywhere in the county. If anybody burns, and especially off-site generated waste. Now, you could burn if you had a tree on there and you cut it down, you could burn that, as long as he met the burning with our ordinance.
Right.
But if he brings anything off-site and burns it, no.
Dean, could you identify yourself for the
Yeah,
people in the meeting?
Dean Olson, I work in the Resource Recovery and Energy Division. I'm the director of that division. Tim Anderson would probably be your inspector, however. So he'd be the one, he works as a waste analyst and an EPA inspector. So he would inspect that property to make sure that it was compliant with all EPA rules and regs, as well as possibly any county, in that case, for waste.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Do you have any other,
I'll mention one more, is we'd like to see a salt storage plan. We've heard a bit about the salt leaching in the soil, negatively affecting adjacent property. We'd like to see a plan reviewed and approved by staff and have the applicant comply with it, and at a minimum requires the facility reconstructed with materials capable of containing the salt. It sounds like it's just under a carport right now, and that the pile be protected from wind, precipitation, and we have a subsurface that prevents it from dissolving into the groundwater.
Dean or Janine, do we have anything that covers that right now, that we don't have to put that as a condition?
Well, what I would say is the best management practice for something like salt, you would want to keep it under cover. So that would mean so it didn't leach into the soil, so on like a concrete or an impervious type pad, and then make sure that the water doesn't hit it and drain off. So some sort of coverage over that.
I guess do we have to address that tonight, or is that something that the land use department would address?
I think I'd like to, put the option out there of maybe having Tim Anderson from our R&E go out to the site and do a visit before the commission maybe votes on this case, and he could take a look to see what is going on regarding the material storage, the salt storage, and come back with some further conditions. That's always a possibility.
Yeah, that being said, what I might propose at this point is obviously these are all excellent points that the neighbors are bringing up. It looks like there may be another gentleman that'd like to speak. Perhaps staff can work with the applicant and the neighbors, reconcile all of their respective points and build a nice clean report that we can vote on next
We got a lot of
month.
loose ends here tonight.
There's a lot to be addressed after you do see the site. There
Okay.
really is.
You're gonna make a motion to table.
So well, this is what we'll do though.
Well-
I'd like to, before we do that, I'd like to call this gentleman that's here tonight. He's driven along, I know Eagle Lake Road's a long way from here, so I'd like to, if you could come down here and I will let you speak. We may have other issues that we don't know about. Thank you, sir. Please state your name for the record.
Good evening. My name's Bob Connors. My wife, Joanne, and I live next door to Ken and Fran
on the north side of the property. We've been dealing with a severe flooding issue for over a year with this setup. In some of the pictures, you can see where our barn has been severely damaged. It actually lifted this spring from all the water. The water and flooding has been nonstop. We've tried to work with the owner to no avail. It's gotten us nowhere. The clay tile was broke early this season. It took a long time to get it fixed. When it was fixed, and I'm not an engineer, but why would there be an 8-inch stand-up pipe going up from that clay tile? And all that does is backflow nonstop. And it's very large, and it continues for days. Even today, my property is completely flooded.
It should be working in the opposite way.
Exactly, but it doesn't, and it's done it multiple times. He did put a cap on it, but it's a homemade cap made out of rubber flat back of the tire.
Yeah, there's a tile broken somewhere.
It was supposedly fixed, but it's because his property is built up so much, the grade has been increased by several feet. This tile sits down, this pipe sits down in the only area that's still on the original height of the property. It flows not on his property, it flows north across Ken's and on lower lying area. So it flows into my field, up into my barn, behind my barn. It damaged it. I've had severe erosion from it. I do understand, I talked to the county, I've got a type of soil that maintains a little bit of moisture. I've got a little bit of a low-lying area. We've been out there for 14 years. We have storms come and go. The rain comes, the rain goes, but not this where it's nonstop and causes nothing but damage.
All right. You have anything else you'd like to add?
Well, my wife and I, we said we've been out there for 14 years. The last couple of years, not so good with everything going on. We sit out there in the evening. We watch nothing but a line of traffic coming back to the building, truck after truck, pulling back their equipment, taking back debris. There's nights we can't sit outside because garbage is burning. We can't even sit outside. We have to go in and close the windows because the whole area is covered in smoke. It's not a real nice smoke, it's whatever is being burned. This happened multiple times. In the middle of the night, we have to close windows because of the burning. We might change directions for what was burning earlier. There's times where the noise is so bad, we have to close the windows because there's there's loaders, there's skid steers working late into the night, and we hear everything. There's times when big tractor trailers show up early in the morning. I go to work at 4:30 in the morning. I'm seeing big tractor trailers pulling up with supplies. Again, vehicles start up and you hear nothing but noise. You've got to close everything up. We moved out to where we're at 14 years ago. We understood it to be a mix of residential and agriculture. That's what drew us out there. What's taking place, to me, doesn't fit under that criteria because of all the damage and everything that's happened. So I'm just hoping that you guys will take everything into account of what we had to say tonight before you make your final decisions. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Janine, if you have a card, can you give the gentleman your card so we keep in touch with you as far as where we're at with this case? Hold on a second.
You have one.
Okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. I will say, though, I'm not looking to put,
Go ahead.
again, too, I don't want to put them out of business. I just think a lot of things need to be addressed.
We have a question.
Sure.
I have one question. He's been in business 4 years?
Yes.
And prior to him being in business, there was no complaints, or I
No.
guess 7 years?
8 years.
8 years, I'm sorry. But still, we're here today because of the special use, variances. If that had not come about,
we've tried to work it out, it just doesn't work out. And if you were to go back there and see the way it's designed, in that one low-lying area with this pipe, let alone all the nurseries on the low side, on the back side, even with that pipe being capped, I have pictures that you probably saw this week in this last rainstorm where you see nothing but a path of water coming from that back area all the way across and into mine. And currently my field is useless.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Janine, can I ask you this? We'll probably continue this. We're going to take a vote on that. Do you think December or January, would you think we could have this done?
I think December. I feel pretty confident that.
Yeah, we can get Tim
Yeah.
out there pretty quick.
Okay, that includes site visits, et cetera?
Site visits, yes.
Weather's not that.
Yes, Tommy?
If we were to follow staff's recommendation, recommendations on this and deny the last two variances, and he was to have to move those two buildings, that would kind of address all this anyway, because then he's gonna have to apply for permits to move all those buildings and properly construct them, I'm assuming. Correct?
Yes, to relocate.
Relocate all the buildings in question. So if we were to follow staff's recommendations and deny the last two sections of this, he's gonna have to move those buildings. Then you're gonna have to go out and inspect what he's doing to move them anyhow, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I perfectly honest with you, I understand what you're saying, Tom.
Well, I just don't
But
think we should hear it again when hear the same stuff again next month.
Well, we're gonna, you know, to get this right, I think it's worth it. I just think that we need, there's too many issues, outstanding issues, grade of the land, all that, waste services. I just think that, yeah, we can do that, but that's gonna, I just think we should get it straightened out first, and then we'll punch it right through.
Yeah,
As long
next
as we
month
can
I
do-
would expect it to be a streamlined case.
Yes.
So with that in mind, Mr. Chairman, for case numbers.
Wait, excuse me, I'd like to read this letter in.
Okay.
There's three neighbors that Mr. Jabay had typed up as the owner of the adjoining property north of Tyler and Jessica Jabay's property located at 29822 South State Line Road, Beecher 60401. I have no objection to the approval and granting of the variances for case number ZC 17-031 for the greenhouses and other buildings located 2.88 feet of the shared property line along the north side of Tyler and Jessica Jabay's property. Now, Michael D. Romaniak signed this, as well as Lynn Desalarius. They live at 29757 South Clemmy. And then the same letter, and this is Andrea and Troy Andres. They signed it. I understand they just purchased the property. And Barry Baltima, who, if you're over east, you know all the Baltimas. So he does have three neighbors that signed this letter that he asked them to. And so I want that to be made part of the record because he did hand this in to me.
Okay.
I don't want it lost.
Scott, Commissioner Lager, do you have a?
I think Mr. Carruthers has or the applicant has
Okay, oh, he's pointing to Mr. Jabay.
You want to speak, come up to the podium, please. Please state your name for records.
Tyler Jabay.
Yes.
Am I able to address any of these, what the neighbors said?
Well, what we're gonna, you can address them, yes. You can briefly, but we'll probably still have to continue.
Okay. So in regards to the drain tile, the tile is not broken anymore. It was a joint effort with the farmer to help me locate the pipe. We did correct it. I don't know how it broke on the north property line because there are no buildings over there. Now, there is a standpipe there. The reason why there's a standpipe there is because when we water our trees, that's the low point, as they stated, and that is to catch any water that goes north onto their property before it hits. Now, the downfall is, and I just learned this in the last big rainstorm that we had that lasted 3 days, 2 weekends ago, is when there's a lot of head pressure to the south of me, there's so much pressure that it bubbles up. It does not fountain up, but it does bubble up. Now, what I propose to do, and this is something that I would be willing to monitor, but basically is to put an extension on it in times of when there's a lot of rain, because it's not going to bubble up if I put a 3-foot extension on it, and then when it's not raining, to take that off so I'm able to catch the water that runs to the north of me. My property's always been the highest piece of property between the two that are north of me. I'm not displacing any more water than I was before, and when we did build up the property in some portions and cut it down in others, there's a 2% pitch that goes straight south. And that is where it runs into another standpipe, and that's where it's regulated. The water from the parking lot does not go north. It only goes south, where it's regulated by an 8-inch standpipe, which does flow a little bit north in between Mr. Connor and Mr. Ruer's properties. That is the lowest point. information of what the purpose is and
With
how.
all that being said, though, I think our best solution is actually have our people from the county to come out there and take a look at it.
They have been out
With-
there.
Without, well, there's been some action on the property that the county's not been involved with, so we, as far as some of these issues that we're looking at here tonight, we're gonna, you know, whether you say you have the problem solved or not, we're gonna probably continue this case so we can take a little bit closer look at the whole case as a whole. What you've done may be right, but I don't know that. I'm not a farmer, I'm not an engineer.
Right, I understand. Greg from the Will County Land Use has been out, and he did meet with me and Mr. Brewers with a topographical map and showed that the lay of the land is not affecting any more or less drain from rain
Do you
water
have
runoff.
anything else to say then?
That's it for right now.
All right, thank you. Mr. Locker, do you have a motion?
I do, with regard to case number ZC 17031, I would make a motion to table to the December meeting.
December 5th?
December, whatever.
December 5th. Okay. We have a motion, have a second. Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We have one no?
You know, one of them?